You're live, Your Worship.
All right, thank you very much, Madam Clerk. All right, Council has reconvened. Welcome back, members of Council and our staff. Council met as a brief in-camera discussion with our CAO and other staff members who were on the call to have a discussion about recommendation number 1. The motion that we did in camera was the following, that we will then go to our clerk to read the motion and we'll present it in open session.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to rest of Council. Sorry, just have some feedback in the background.
Okay.
The motion before Council is that Council of the Township of Clearview hereby refer back to staff recommendation number 1, MOUs and fundraising commitment of the Community Hall's accessibility renovations next steps presentation, directing staff to discuss with each hall board the township supporting and funding the capital project of the AODA renovations, with the focus of the hall board fundraising going towards the operations and/or capital of the hall, and that the specifics of any support from fundraising efforts for the capital renovations that is supported by each hall be captured in the MOUs.
All right. Can I get the mover and seconder on that, please? Mr. Burton and Mr. Lamers. Discussion? Anybody have any comment in open session? All right. Oh, yeah, thank you. Councillor McKechnie, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. So as I mentioned earlier, I will not be supporting the motion. So basically, as it stands now, the recommendation number 1 that Terry gave us that was on the agenda, we are looking at over 20 years, $410,000, and over 30 years, if we extend the loan out over 30 years, $320,000. And to me, what we've come up with in camera, that will be the minimum. I can't see us holding to that number. And, you know, as I mentioned earlier, we're just, it's too vague for me. I think we're creating winners and losers here amongst the hall boards. And I think that 10% target is a good target. And I would like to see that kept in there for all the hall boards. So I can't support the new motion that we've come up with, or the new recommendation we've come up with. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councillor McKechnie. Anybody else with any comments? Councillor Leishman, yes.
I wasn't supporting it in closed session, but I will support it in open session because I want to get on with it and I want the MOUs for the halls. I actually believe what Councillor McKechnie is saying, but I will support it because I want to get on with it. Thank you.
That's okay. Anybody else with any questions or comments? I'll give a brief commentary before the vote, and that is that I really do appreciate the opportunity to speak to our staff and receive you know, some good input from our CAO and from our senior managers who joined us on the call. And I also want to appreciate that Council had a very good discussion about this very difficult topic. So thank you all, Council, for your participation and your input. It's important, you know, when we're having these discussions, to hear from all corners of our township, and certainly each of you represent that. Members of Council, you've got the motion. There's a mover and seconder, and I'm prepared to call the motion. Those in favor? And opposed? Thank you, noted, and I appreciate that. That'll be a carried motion. Appreciate that. And so perhaps to the CAO, Mr. CAO, with you and Mr. Vachon, I believe, would be tasked with taking this back. I guess it would go back directly to Terry, but I'm just looking to you to work with Terry on this as you took us to the in-camera portion to have that discussion. Is that correct, Mr. CAO?
Oh, that's correct. I'd be happy to work with Terry on it.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. All right, members of Council. So we've dealt with number 1. We're going to move on to recommendation number 2, the project procurement method. Be it resolved that Council of the Township of Clearview hereby 1, approve the tender process as the procurement method for the AODA Community Halls renovation project, and item 2, that the engineers and architects' final stamped designs be used when tendering for each hall renovation project. Okay, we have a mover and seconder. We'll have a discussion about this. Mr. Broderick and Councillor Leishman. Thank you. Anybody have any questions to Terry and or the CAO in regards to the questions that are put forward on this recommendation. Mr. McKechnie, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. For Terry, just if he could clarify for me there, the engineers and architects' final stamp designs, and I know that some of the halls, and I'm thinking of Duntroon Hall in particular, they had their own private architect, Lloyd Hunt, work on it and provide designs. So whose designs are we going to be taking? Is this the designs from Burnside, or is it the private architect, or whose designs?
Good question. To Terry, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Councillor McKechnie. We will be using the Burnside's architects. So we have engaged Burnside's as the engineer on behalf of the township to do the engineering and the architects. They hired their architects. They had agreed to utilize Duntroon's architect as part of the conceptual design process. We have not had the discussion with Burnside's with respect to using Lloyd as the architect of their choice for the actual final design concept, if you follow what I'm saying. So we'll have to talk about Duntroon with Burnside. Like I said, they agreed to use them for the because at the end of the day, they're the ones that are on record, and they're the ones that have the liability on this project. So they have to feel comfortable working with their architect. If they decide that they want to work with Lloyd on the next step, they can do so, but it's at the Burnside's choice.
Councillor McKechnie?
Okay, no, thank you very much. Yeah, no, I would encourage you to work with the Duntroon Hall Board in that regard. I know they're very happy with what Lloyd came up with, and on a plus, I don't even think Lloyd charged them. So anyway, if you could work with the Duntroon Hall Board, that'd be great. Thank you.
And Your Worship, if I can add, vice versa, for you to Councillor McKechnie, I don't even know if Lloyd wanted to get into that. I mean, maybe he just wanted to be part of the conceptual design component. I don't even know if he wants to be part of the actual final design. The final designs are like, they're about 50 pages thick type of thing. And I don't know if he was actually interested in doing that part either. So we'll have to investigate that. And Duntroon Hall is the only one that was put in that position or had requested that. The 5 other halls were fine with Burnside's architect, which was Avis Architect, who was part of the presentation on March the 7th.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a good question. Good point. Anybody else with any specific questions to staff about the recommendation or comments? All right. I'm not seeing any. I do have a quick question to Terry as the mayor. I'm just wondering, when we're doing this process, we do have some drawings that are already prepared, and that's in another motion a little later on. As we move forward, would we begin the process in each of the halls to get engineering drawings prepared for the future? I mean, we're looking at the 2 correctly that we're talking about initiating soon, but would we move ahead with engineering now to get those drawings prepared ahead of time?
Yes, Your Worship, to answer your question, absolutely. So we're going to give, pending the other recommendations that are coming. If we move in the 6 that we've created, as soon as they're done number 2, they're moving on to number 3.
Right.
And so on and so forth, as soon as they possibly can. Absolutely.
Okay, that's good. And the other qualification I just want to state, when your text that you wrote only says approve the tender process. That simple phrase, approve the tender process, is actually, the tender process is well documented here at Clearview Township and other municipalities and how tendering works in Ontario. And so we will be using those tender processes that Clearview has and the province of Ontario through the engineering agencies that work with tenders. So that's what that means. It's not just saying it's a haphazard tender process. It is the tender process is that we're going to follow. So that's just a clarification in the motion. Anybody else with any questions or comments? Fair enough. Thank you, Terry. Council, you've got a motion in front of you. We've got a mover and seconder. I'm prepared to call the motion. Those in favor? And that will carry. Thank you very much, Council. All right. This is the next motion, which I know that Kelly McDonald has been waiting to participate in this conversation. Be it resolved that Council of the Township of Clearview hereby, one, approve the following two-stage funding approach as recommended by the treasurer for the Community Halls AODA renovation construction project. Stage one, to utilize the existing hall renovation reserve to fund the first two hall renovations that are scheduled. And stage two, for the subsequent hall renovations that are scheduled, a construction loan will be obtained through the OILC for the project amounts. All right, a mover and seconder on this motion, please. Mr. Lamers, Mr. Broderick, thank you very much. Do you have any questions to members of council? Do you have any questions to Terry, Kelly, and or John about the financing project recommendation in this motion? Anybody with any questions? Going once, going twice, seeing none. Council, thank you. We've got a motion with a mover and seconder. I'm prepared to call the motion. Those in favor? And that carries. Thank you very much. All right. Recommendation number 4, the hall's renovation schedule. All right. Be it resolved that Council of the Township of Clearview hereby, 1, approve the following schedule for AODA renovations of the community halls based on renovating 2 halls per year. 2022, the Avening Hall and the Sunnydale Hall. 2023, the Brentwood Hall and the Duntroon Hall. And 2024, the Dunedin Hall and the Nottawa Memorial Community Center Hall. Is there a mover and seconder on this motion? Tom Patterson and Councillor Leishman. Thank you for that. And is there any questions of this recommendation? Anybody got any questions to the staff in regard to this process? Yes, Councillor McKechnie, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you to Terry. Terry, would there be any problem if we split up, I'm thinking in 2024, split up Dunedin and Nottawa, thinking maybe give Nottawa a little bit of extra time and maybe put them into 2025, because the renovations don't have to be done, from what I understand, until at least the end of 2025. So do you see a problem with splitting them up?
Good question, Terry.
Your Worship, to Councillor McKechnie. With respect, I don't have an opinion on the matter. I don't think it's a problem. It's council's decision to make. If that's what council so chooses, that's fine. 2024, 2025, whatever council directs us to do, we will do. But I don't have an opinion on if we should or shouldn't. But it's definitely doable, obviously.
All right. Anybody else with any questions or comments? Because I would have one comment for Councillor McKechnie then. Keeping in mind, Council, that we're making this recommendation as a schedule, but the schedule obviously can be adjusted, for issues or concerns that are outside of our control. Whether it be a labor problem with the contractor or whether it be a availability of products, we may. This would be the schedule moving forward, and whether it's all completed in 2024. That is not something that we have any control of. All we can do is set the schedule and work towards that schedule. So I would emphasize that while we set a schedule like this and council has the right to set motions in play and so on and make recommendations, it's certainly, there are a lot of factors that may come into play on this, and we would have to rely upon our staff to advise us if there's any delay or changes or adjustments that would may be needed, and they would bring back any recommendations at that time. So I hear what you're saying, Councillor McKechnie, about possibly splitting that up, but I think given that that's 4 years out, I think that we could probably expect staff to give us a recommendation as we get closer to sending a tender for Duntroon or Dunedin or Nottawa by that point. So does that make sense? Councillor McKechnie, go ahead.
Yeah, am I still on? Yeah, okay, thanks. I'm not going to make an amendment. I mean, I don't think it would even get a seconder. So I'm happy with the 2024 for Dunedin and Ottawa, because I know that's probably pretty flexible. That's only 2 years out. It's not 4 years. That's only 2 years out. So
the whole project's 4 years. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, I just recognize that Ottawa has some challenges, and I just thought that would give them a little bit of extra time. That's all. So, but carry on.
I appreciate your comment, and I mean, we're doing what we can here within the ability of tendering and with the ability of our contractors and who knows what else. So there's a lot of moving parts in this. So I appreciate that flexibility of council. Anybody else with any questions to the schedule recommendation? Nobody else? All right. Thank you, Terry, for your input. Thank you, Councillor McKechnie. Council, I've got the motion and we've got a mover and seconder. I'm prepared to call the motion. All those in favor? And that motion carries. Thank you very much. Last one is item number 5. It's actually 2 pages, so I'm just going to get it open here for me. There we go. Recommendation number 5 is on the floor now. Okay, this is the determination of construction guidelines. Recommendation be it resolved that Council of the Township of Clearview hereby 1, direct staff to work with each hall board to create individual construction memorandums of understanding outlining the specific roles of township staff, contractors, and the hall board during the construction period, with each MOU being brought back to council for final approval. And item 2, that during the construction period of each hall renovation project, that the township covers 100% of the operating expenses of the hall, which includes, of course, heat, hydro, water utilities, miscellaneous operating expenses, and item 3, that the township will not cover any lost revenues during the construction period, such as facility bookings or revenues gained from use of the hall or the property. Okay, a lot of items there. I'll look for a mover and seconder. Mr. Broderick, Ms. Deneen, thank you. Anybody with any questions on these multiple items here? Yes, Councillor Walker.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a quick question to Terry. Terry, when you say outline the specific roles of the township staff, contract hall boards, I'm hoping included in that is who will be given the directions for any work order changes. Hopefully that is that part of that type of a construction MOU, because I see it with a hall board and with the site super and the construction company. I see a vast of people maybe saying, wanting to change things. So I think it's definite that we have one individual being that person to deal with the construction company in work order change. Otherwise, our costs will do a little bit of quite a jump if we don't make sure we have that included. So thank you. That's included in that. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, Terry and John Ferguson. Terry, go ahead first.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you to Councillor Walker. Yes, it's absolutely included. And if we go back to my presentation under recommendation number 8, A, which proposed the township looking at its existing staff to see if we have the expertise and folks internally to be the project manager, it would be that project manager's responsibility to do exactly what you just spelled out, Councillor Walker. So the answer is yes. And we're looking at having a project manager on site representing Clearview Township, being either a consultant or a staff that we actually have internally.
Okay, Mr. Ferguson, anything you want to add? I know that's part of a staffing discussion that's been ongoing. Anything you want to add?
Yeah, mainly the project management is to keep it on time and on budget. And that's the key oversight role that I believe we have the expertise internally.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the question, Councillor Walker. Anybody else? Members of council? Anything? Yes, Councillor McKechnie, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you to Kelly this time. So item number 2, the township's going to cover 100% of the operating expenses of the hall, including the heat, hydro, water utilities, and miscellaneous while it's under construction. So Terry had said that the halls would be 6 to 8 months for construction. So that's going to be the equivalent of one hall being sitting idle for anywhere from 3 to 4 years sitting idle. I have no idea how much it's the operating expenses are going to be. Where is that money going to come from? Will that come from that construction loan, or will that come from somewhere else, some other part of our budgets?
Actually, I appreciate that question. That's a good one, Doug. Kelly, what's your thoughts on that?
Through Your Worship to Councillor McKechnie. While the hall itself is under construction, a lot of the electrical, that kind of thing, that will be in the construction contract because it'll actually be the contractor using those services. As far as the regular day-to-day water, heat, hydro, that will come from the operating budget for the halls. So we do have money set aside sort of in the recreation department. If council directs, I'm more than happy to use the AODA renovation budget to cover that. In reality, that is part of it. Again, that's at council direction.
Yeah,
Okay,
I'm scratching my head on that one too, Councillor McKechnie.
yeah.
Yes, another question?
No, I'm just not sure if I understand that, the answer there. Anyway, I, in the grand scheme of things, it's not going to be a whole lot of money compared to what we're spending on the whole project. So I'm not too worried. It's just, yeah, it's, so you said that you're planning on taking it from the operating budgets of the hall. Is that right?
Sorry, through your worship to Councillor McKechnie, it wouldn't be the actual halls themselves. It would be the recreation department budget. Keeping in mind, when these facilities are closed, it's very, very minimal costing in there. And while it's
Right.
under construction, that's part of the construction contract. They pay the electric, they pay the water usage. So when we look at it at a grand scheme, it's very minimal costing. I would estimate $100 a month, maybe, for each hall.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
That's good. Thank you. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, thank you. I was going to go to Terry next, actually, because I was going to get Terry to clarify. Certainly in the recreation department, you have to cover the expenses of operating the facilities that are not operated by volunteers. So within that budget, is that where you're suggesting that, or Kelly's suggesting you would be able to access, Terry?
Well, kind of, your worship. You know, as you mentioned earlier, some of the costs that we cover, the snow plow, the cutting of the grass, some of the water stuff. So that goes into our Parks and Rec budget. We do have line items for each hall for some of those smaller scale operating. So we would include some of the other nominal stuff that Kelly was mentioning under those line items. And if your worship, if I can just add, the intent of putting that in there was to reassure the hall boards that they're not responsible for those costs. This was some feedback that was provided to me by some of the hall boards when we had our brainstorming and we had our meetings, was they wanted to be reassured that they were not going to be responsible for those costs. So this motion by council today will reassure them that they're not responsible, even though it's a nominal amount. They want to make sure that it's being covered. Thank you, Your Worship.
Right. All right. And basically what it does is just extend the responsibility of the township to cover all of operating expenses during the construction period. That's really what it is. Okay, good question and good discussion. Anybody else with any questions or comments about this section? Members of council? Deputy Mayor Burton, you're kind of disappearing into the dark. I don't see if you've got your hand. Oh, there you go. Hello. Okay. Everybody else? Okay, that's good. All right, members of council, then we thank you, Terry and Kelly. We've got a motion. We have a mover and seconder, and I'm prepared to call the motion. Those in favor? And that carries. Thank you very much, council. All right. Terry, I want to thank you for this and advise you and your department that the work doesn't end just because we made some decisions. Obviously, there's a whole lot more work ahead. From recommendation number 1, I've already poked our CAO to give you a hand with that if you need some assistance from that. And of course, I would ask you to draw upon the great experience of our volunteers right across the community as you work on all of these recommendations. So good luck with that, and please keep us up to date as you always do on this project. Thank you very much, Terry, and thank you for your time here tonight. Members of council, is there anything further? I have the bylaw to confirm, but before that, I'm going to take a privilege for a moment. I advised you at the beginning of the meeting that I'm taking a privilege to ask the council comments on something. This arrived on my desk today. This is a flag for the country of Ukraine, and given the terrible war that's going on in Ukraine at this time, I'm wondering if council has any objection to me asking for this to be flown somewhere in our community. looking for your comments on it. I'm thinking that we recently had a flagpole installed at Station Park in Stainer. That pole went up as a result of a tree that came down. Councillor Walker, you remember that big tree that was there? So I'm wondering if this might be an appropriate use for this here. Mr. Burton, go ahead.
You're muted.
You're muted there, friend. There we go. What's going on, Barry?
My
There we
mute
go.
button wasn't unmuting. I was pushing it, but it wasn't unmuting for some reason.
Okay.
It's gone in the dark too, just like me. I'm happy to put forth the motion then that flag be flown at that said flagpole at Station Park. I'll put forth that motion if somebody'd like to second it.
All right, Councillor Deneen, seconder. Madam Clerk, do you have any questions? No questions? I don't know if I'll make a big ceremony of this, folks. I'm doing a flag raising tomorrow, which I think many of you may be attending actually in regards to Green Shirt Day. But I don't know if we'll get to this tomorrow. Maybe we'll do it on Friday or something like that, and I'll send in an email. Okay. Council, we got a motion in front of you. I'll ask for your vote. All those in favor? And that carries. Thank you very, very much. We will certainly look after that. And thank you for this. Members of council, we've got a bylaw to confirm the proceedings. Recommendation be it resolved, bylaw number 2224, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the April 6, 2022 council meeting. Be presented read a first, second, and third time and finally passed on the 6th day of April, 2022. I have a mover and seconder on the bylaw, Mr. Lamers and Miss Councillor Leishman. May I have your vote? All those in favor? And that bylaw carries. Thank you very much. Motion to adjourn. Recommendation be it resolved. Council meeting be adjourned at 7:49 p.m. Deputy Mayor Burton, seconded by Councillor Deneen. All those in favor? And we will adjourn. Thank you very much for your attention tonight. Appreciate that very much. All the best. Perhaps we'll see you at the flag raising for Green